Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Power On Build Together. We're going to have a fireside chat with Mike Quigley, the CMO of Niantic, brought to you in partnership with Niantic and, of course, GGP. And we just really appreciate you making time with us on a Friday. We're going to do some learning. We're going to do some sharing. It's going to be a great day. I've had the privilege of knowing Mike, gosh, almost going on 2 decades now, and just really thankful to have him here sharing knowledge and sharing the best practices. We're going to talk about how they navigated, and are navigating, as we all are, through COVID and through all the changes going on in the world, and also what they're doing about it and how they're acting on the world. So with no further ado, let me add to the chat. Come join me, Mike Quigley.
Hey, Gordon, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Thank you for
Excellent.
being here. Thank you for joining us for Build
Absolutely.
Together.
Thanks for having me.
So, I mean, you are the CMO of Niantic, but let's paint the picture. Maybe share a little bit of your background. You've been in games with us. You're a lifer, so maybe paint the picture of how you found your way there.
Absolutely. Well, I feel fortunate, like I know a lot of folks on the live stream today, to be in interactive entertainment and to have had worked with some great creators and people on the business side over the years. So thanks again for having me. Let's see, Gordon. I'm a farm town kid from Eastern Washington State. Went to school up in Seattle at University of Washington, but came to California and have been here for the majority of my career. Spent about 5 years at Disney down in Southern California. Came up here to the Bay Area for business school at Cal. And then during that time, I had this amazing internship. I got to work with the Sony team in summer of '95 on a new project they were working on called PlayStation. So it was pretty fun. So some pretty fun stories from those days. We won't go into name game on all that stuff, but a lot of folks that either worked on that platform as third parties or that we worked with together in Foster City or with the international group. So that internship kind of sparked my interest in a shift from filmed entertainment into gaming. And from there, kind of never looked back. 11 years at EA, spent some time over at the YouTube group after a small company I was at, also gaming focused, called Jambool, was acquired by Google, landed over at YouTube for a few years, and then crossed paths again with an old college friend from business school, John Hankey. He was up at the Google San Francisco office and said, "Hey, why don't you come on over here and see what we're doing? And we might use a little help here." And so, long story short, spent a couple years on the back end of my 5 years at Google at Niantic, and then helped John and Phil Kesslin, our CTO, spin out and secure our Series A investment. And now we're coming up on it'll be 5 years in October that we've been independent. So that's crazy ride with a lot of amazing people along the way. And yeah, it's been fun, but just getting started, to be honest.
No, it's incredible. Just a reminder. I mean, I actually started off as an intern in Foster City as well, like back in '88, and just how much of it is like the people and the people business, and everyone just sort of out there in the crowd. I mean, I hope you take the chance to connect.
I remember you there, by the way. I remember that. That's where we met.
Right, and communities like this. So just everyone out there, yes, feel free to introduce yourselves, connect. Like at every level, it really is only as good as we treat each other. So you were talking about you landed at Niantic, but I mean, take us in closer. I mean, like what made Niantic unique? I mean, you've had a chance to work at a lot of different places. Like, take me a little deeper into the origin story there.
Sure, absolutely. Well, when I first came over to have coffee with John and Phil and the team, one thing that was very palpable is that these were actually not gaming folks. They were geo folks, right? They had spent a decade, most of them, working at Google on the geo side of the house. John and the team at a company called Keyhole founded a product that eventually became Google Earth. And so their mentality, their starting point, which I think explains a lot of the innovation that you can credit, what John and Megan Quinn, our current COO, was actually there in her early days as well. So a lot of that tinkering they were doing, actually, they were coming at it from such a fresh perspective, because it was more from a geo perspective and not some of the more, classically trained backgrounds that a lot of creators in our business have. And so they thought about it, and it started all with a map, right? And it was all about, John's got some pretty fun stories about those early Google days. People saying, well, what if you took this technology and what if you turned it into a game and that sort of thing? And so there were two early apps that we built at Niantic while we were still within Google, being incubated there before we spun out. One was called Field Trip. which was kind of more of a virtual tour guide for you, going to different cities, moments of history, culture, that sort of thing. And the second one was a little game called Ingress. And Ingress started off, actually the prototype for Ingress was called Battle for San Francisco. More on that story later, but that's another live stream probably. But from Battle of for San Francisco, that prototype, Ingress, was born. And Ingress was basically an R&D prototype, not just for the dev team, but for the BD team, the ops team, the marketing team, on will people actually do this? And again, the majority of the game actions require you to actually pick up your phone and actually move in order to engage and basically do a game of Risk and do territory control was kind of the basic premise behind it. And so, yeah, those early days were fun. We started off Android only, invite only. So in fact, we didn't even launch. We went Android only, invite only, November 2012. We didn't even launch on iOS until the summer of 2014. But the reason for that was, again, we were trying to figure out the game mechanics, figure out the monetization. How does IAP, how do in-app transactions or purchases that you do, how do they differ from a more classic single player standalone game? So a lot of learning in those early years, and that was way before Pokemon Go, way before Harry Potter Wizards Unite. But yeah, those foundational days were really important, I think, for the team, particularly on the dev side, just where we could really tinker and find game features and mechanics that not only that we thought would work, but also that our community told us, hey, you know what? I will get out of my flat. I will leave my apartment. I will leave my home. I'll grab a friend, a daughter, a spouse, maybe just the dog, and I'll go outside and play games. And so it was been pretty inspiring from those early days.
How did it go from, I guess, so I mean, Niantic and the games, it seems like such like strong, like foundational sort of like pillars, right? We talk about pillars a lot. Like, how did it go from these are features we're exploring? Like, it seems like there's a lot of exploration, discovery into this is who we are and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. Well, the three pillars of Niantic have been, kind of there from the start. And those include exploration and discovery. Again, this is that geo side of the team that is so, kind of what their history was. Number two was around physical movement and exercise. We had to make exercise fun. And so that was the second pillar, was around getting people out and about, a little bit of physical movement. This is not marathon running or that sort of thing. It's just get out, have a walk, get some fresh air. There's so many studies that show the health benefits of something as simple as a walk. And so these are the kind of things that were kind of rooted in that second pillar. And then third is social. And really, if you think about the time that Niantic was founded, social meant something, very, very different than the way we define it today. It was kind of the classic social networks that were emerging and that sort of thing. For us, this is real world social. Again, not just because of the game mechanics, the majority of things to play the games, you have to go outdoors to do, but also because of the community and the kind of, I mean, it may sound a little silly, but that lost thing that I think we have as a society, which is you and I are together in a real space, looking each other eye to eye and having a fun shared experience. And so that real world social pillar of the company was as important as the first two. Because it really was at the heart of let's do these things together. And so we were taking inspirations and cues from music festivals and other types of more participatory live events and kind of put our own spin on it. So, but these things have guided us all the way, and they still do today.
That's so cool. And I've done the Pokemon Go. I've put my Harry Potter miles into work. But that's the Niantic we know. I mean, the world's changed. Right. These are unique times. And I guess I want to talk about the times we're in now, right? And how you've adapted, how we're all adapting to the times that we're in. Even now, this talk, right? We're making this work. The audience, you're making time with us. Hello on Facebook. Everyone is together in this new way. How are you adapting?
Well, we've always thought of the community of our player base. It starts with our own employees and our staff. And so as everyone out there can relate, this has been a tough year, and we're only halfway through it. But one of the things that we learned early, we have offices in Hong Kong. Setsuto Murai, longtime Google veteran, runs our APAC office out of Japan. The way that the pandemic spread, there were things that were happening, and we were getting previews of the impact this was going to have. And so like a lot of companies that have offices in the Asia Pacific region, we were a little bit more braced for impact, I guess, than maybe some folks that are, based in the US or based in Western Europe, other than Italy, where things also kind of escalated quickly. But, we were able to kind of just put our place to make sure that our employees were safe. And we started to get used to this notion of not just sheltering in place, but working from home. And, there's tons of Zoom memes and everything. We've all had our moments where you get the Zoom fatigue and that sort of thing. But we're not unique as a company in terms of how we've navigated those waters. But I like to think that from the learnings from Setsto and Anthony Chang, our lead in Hong Kong, we were able to kind of get the rest of the team, the bulk of our employees, which are in markets like Seattle, Los Angeles, San Francisco, here in Sunnyvale, to basically figure out how can we keep our employees safe and keep them as just productive and mentally healthy and that sort of thing as possible. And so, there's no playbook on this stuff. I don't think anyone's ever dealt with anything like this as a society. And so, at least in these modern times. And so, yeah, it was a real learning. From that, we basically realized that our mission of basically Adventures on Foot was pretty challenged, right? Because everyone is sheltering in place. And so this is an opportunity for our teams to kind of regroup and think, well, we know that we bring a lot of, hours, of joy and happiness and just a break from a given work day or something fun to do on the weekend. But how do we do it in this environment? And so that's where we at least tried to. Step one, Gordon, was just trying to create an environment where the employees and the staff felt supported and had the time to adjust. A lot of empathy for just so many of our different kind of cohorts, basically, of employees. People with 3 or 4 roommates, and the Wi-Fi is getting hammered because everyone's on Zoom. Our young parents, dealing with things like now schooling from home. I mean, there's so many stories, and everyone out there can relate. So I'm not going to, go into that, but just a lot of empathy, I think, from our Maria Weaver, our head of our people team. I mentioned Megan earlier, our new COO, and of course, John Hankey, our CEO, just trying to make sure we could do right by our employees, knowing that if we could figure that out, then we'll figure out, well, what are the solutions that we can do for our players and our fans.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, talk about from a player community standpoint, like how you adapted.
Yeah, so a lot of adaptations on that front. There was some low-hanging fruit that Kay Kawai, Matt Slemon, working with our partners at the Pokemon Company, who were also, incredibly patient, incredibly supportive as we were all going through this transition. So it started with just some simple tweaks, right? Things like increasing the distance, the distance radius for you to interact with a gym. If you don't play Pokemon Go out there, there are 2 types of locations in the game. One is a gym and one is a Pokestop. And you can get different items and that sort of thing, or do different interactions like protecting a gym with your teammates for control of a gym. And so doing something like just decreasing the interactive radius of that was one small step. But we knew that we needed to do more. And so one of the things that is so amazing is that our dev teams, basically, they kind of proved out the point of what can happen when you have constraints, right? We all think about, well, if I had, a little more staff, a little more budget, typically it's actually a little more time. It's probably all of the above, depending on the case. So I'm sure that especially the game devs out there can relate to the fact that those have been constraints that have been put on all of us. But imagine the constraints we're in now, and basically a fundamental, threat to our business, because again, the majority of things you need to do to play our games is to go outdoors. And so the team, with this constraint of shelter in place, it wasn't just the features they created, major features, and remote raids is the best example of that, where you could basically do a raid battle remotely at a gym from your apartment, from your home, from your flat. But also, it happened across the company. Harry Potter team did an amazing job. There's basically a equivalent multiplayer battle mode in Harry Potter Wizards Unite called Wizarding Challenges. We made those remotely accessible too, and that was called the Night Bus, had a nice narrative wrapper around it. The Ingress team created a feature called DroneNet. And these are things where just recognizing the state that our players were in, what are ways that we can at least just to kind of get through this period, do some things that our fans can still engage. And so some really good stats on that. We were also fortunate. You can see here the stat. We've had 30 million remote raids since we started that back in April. Another foundational feature that was actually launched in December of 2018, which was our basic player versus player mode, something that's obviously been a core part of the Pokemon IP and franchise, you know, in its 20+ year history. It finally came to Pokemon Go. And then that set us up for basically 13 months later to launch an all new feature on top of our player versus player capabilities called GBL internally. It's the Go Battle League. And that's another thing that you can do from the comfort of your own home, or maybe on a walk on your neighborhood. And so these are the kind of things that we were able to really dial up and invest in. And you know, for what it's worth, we're ending season 2 of Go Battle League on July 27th. And that's been another thing that, you know, we've seen great engagement with our fans on. Almost a third of Pokemon Go players are engaged in the Go Battle League and the PvP battles. So we're fortunate that our teams, under these constraints, could innovate, and not just innovate with really, you know, kind of unique twists on these things,
Sure.
but do it in these amazingly compressed time frames. So nothing but love for me on their efforts, and of course the cross-functional teams at Niantic, including my organization, to support and roll those things out. So just really appreciative to our amazing creative folks.
Well, I'm actually seeing in the chat, it's interesting with the constraint, right? You not only had to adapt to different countries and different cities, but in some ways the game has become more accessible for rural communities.
That's
because you sort of democratized where you are. And so people in urban areas and rural areas are actually able to have new, similar experiences.
That's right.
It leads me to a question, though, which is, I mean, you talked about the pillars. I mean, how have your communities adapted, especially the people for whom travel was a key part of the play in your communities?
Yeah. So that is a great question. And it's one that, as we were approaching the spring and getting ready for summer, live events are a core part of what we do. And it started off in the early days. We had a live event for Ingress at a small Native American reservation in the Midwestern United States that had 72 Ingress players show up. This was in about February timeframe of 2013. Pretty cold day, but they showed up to this initial live event. And from there, our live event strategy was born. And from there, so many members of the Ingress team that were so foundational kind of scaled that up. We had different types, archetypes of live events, heavily competitive types of events where the two teams, the blue team, the Resistance, and the green team, the Enlightened, would meet in different cities all around the world on a Saturday afternoon and battle for territory control. That foundation was then kind of continued on with Pokemon Go and manifested itself in things like safari zones, which are in certain cities around the world, and of course, Pokemon Go Fest. And so, but it has been challenging if you think about the history of you know, the company and the role that live events have played. Here we are gearing up for another big year, another big summer. And we can't have crowds. That we're not going to ever do anything that would put our players in harm's way, our employees in harm's way. And so again, back to just the innovative thinking and that dealing with constraints. What do we do to adapt? And so
I was going to say, this is incredible. How do you adapt? I mean, this is incredible.
So you know, these are just a few photos from things like our Chicago Go Fest event, Dortmund, Germany, Yokohama, Japan. Again, really close partnership with the Pokemon company. We would come in and do Pokemon Go overlays at their events like Pikachu Outbreak. So here we are, we're standing in 2020, and we realize early on that we're not going to be able to do what is basically one of our, you know, primary focal points, to bring our communities together, to celebrate together, to meet new people that share this passion, this interest. And so the stepping stone was actually, we had to postpone all of our Q1 safari zones. We canceled, or we actually postponed our March community day. And then the team started experimenting, and they started thinking, okay, well, we know the goals, we know the benefits that these things provide in terms of people feeling the sense of togetherness and that sort of thing. What's a way that we could do that virtually? And so the team did some just light testing with our April community day, nothing too crazy, just trying to figure out, hey, what's a path here? The same thing we did with our May and our June community days, just figuring out ways that we can keep the fans engaged, try to give them as much of that that fun, that passion, that sense of camaraderie that are so palpable when you're at a physical event, how can we do that virtually? And so there's a lot of stepping stones there. But the one thing that's so amazing is that if you think about those pictures earlier of those large crowds, they are made up of essentially literally basically thousands of micro crowds, right? And so if you go back to that last image, these are families, these are friends, these are siblings, these are college roommates who get together to share this shared interest. And so we thought, well, everyone basically has their kind of safe group that they have been basically spending time with. You know, if you're in Japan, it's been since late January. You know, I think the day of infamy here in the US was March 16th. That was really where the line got drawn in the sand for us. These are groups of people and people we care about that we can have a shared experience with in our local, in our home, in our apartment, in our local neighborhood, again, with social distancing protocols and that sort of thing that are safe. And so these are the kind of things that we had in mind as we adapted our live events. And that leads us to this summer and our basically fundamental pivot for our penultimate event, which is Pokemon Go Fest. And I'm excited, actually, if you'll allow me, Gordon, I would love to show the folks here our Pokemon Go Fest commercial and TV ad and digital ad that we're using to basically have people join us next weekend, July 25th and 26th. So,
and I know you have some news too.
I do have some news.
Well, let's see the commercial.
Let's do the commercial. Why
okay.
Not? Roll tape.
Are you feeling me? You can download Pokemon Go today. Join us for Pokemon Go Fest.
So a little different to do something global and virtual versus showing up and rolling into a city like Chicago or Dortmund, Germany, or Yokohama, Japan. But again, in close partnership with our partners at the Pokemon Company and our amazing Pokemon Go team, we've come up with this structure. And this event is next weekend. It's a 2-day event, Saturday and Sunday, July 25th, 26th. And the news that Gordon was alluding to, just hot off the press, literally, John Hankey just tweeted it a few hours ago. We crossed the 1 million tickets sold mark overnight. And so, and tickets will be on sale through next weekend. So at the risk of sounding like, overly salesy, I am going to beat the drum on this. And I would love to have your fans, and followers buy a ticket, because we have already committed to donating the entirety of our proceeds for Pokemon Go Fest to social impact initiatives that we feel very passionately about, including Black Lives Matter initiatives that we announced back in early June. And I think, Gordon, you and I are going to talk about that here in a couple minutes. But this is just something that, we're passionate about. And so this is not a revenue play. This is not a profit play. This is, we're all in a tough time. And it's been an incredibly challenging year. Let's find a moment where we can be together, even if it's in those small groups of our close friends, our family. Let's be together and just, we could all use a little break and a little time together to hopefully enjoy a sunny day, or maybe bundle up if you're in a chilly environment in the Southern Hemisphere, and just have a moment where we can escape and just be together and just be together.
That's amazing. And I want everyone to know in the crowd. So we're going to have a Q&A for sure. So just to be sure, we're seeing your questions. Hello out there on Facebook Live. We see you. Hello here in the Q&A. We see you. We're going to get there. We've got things to talk about. And we're going to talk about all these things so that everyone has all the same information as we ask the questions. So that sort of brings me to my next question, which is a little more technical, but I think important, which is so historically, like AR and VR are often like clumped together as XR. And what has surprised you about AR gameplay and patterns now that people have been able to play for years? Like you talked about Ingress back in the day. Now people, for a moment, they've been in it. What's sort of surprising you? What's emerging?
Yeah, I like to joke with our Vice President of Communications, Tara Randall. I like to joke with her that VR had a really good publicist in the early days. but AR is really going to be the thing that is going to resonate and is going to have a lot more potential. And I've actually said that for a long time. We are passionate about AR because, you know, not surprisingly, come back to the pillars of the company, right? The ones that John authored with that small team in the early days. Exploration and discovery, physical movement and exercise. Oh, thanks for throwing the slide up. And real world social. For us, it can only ever be about enhancing the real world, period. So what are the things that we can do as far as digital overlays, information? Yes, a lot of it's entertainment, right? But we're pretty bullish about the fact that our Niantic real world platform, which is the enabling platform that we build all of our games on and all of our future games on, it has a lot of other utility and use cases beyond gaming. And so, yes, gaming is it's fun, and there's a lot of gamers here today. So, you know, I'm gonna cater to y'all, but we're excited about other potential, you know, applications and services that can be built using our platform and our tech. And you know, from that regard, for us, it's always been about AR. We never wanted to have experiences that were solo and kept you sedentary and that sort of thing. It was always about, let's get out and what do we do? And I have to give a ton of credit to our R&D teams that are working and building this platform, because what the AR we're trying to do, this is not tethered to, you know, I'm gonna date myself here when I say this, but we're not tethered to a cray in a safe, well-lit conference room. We're talking about doing things like semantic segmentation and occlusion out in the real world, without any kind of hard line or hardwired. This is out, you know, using existing mobile networks and of course 5G networks, mobile edge computing, to really enable some pretty innovative experiences. And so we're excited about that potential. And we know the things we're doing are very, very unique. So for us, okay, XR, I hear you, but yeah, for us, it's always AR. It's AR all the time, and it always has been. And that's the focus.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. So for people, okay, AR, let's all lean into it. Team Quigley, Team AR. For people who are interested in pursuing AR projects,
yeah,
they've heard you. Like, are there programs where Niantic is going to cultivate emerging developers? Like, what are y'all going to do to lift up this generation that you've created?
Well, this is a little incentive kind of slide here that we wanted to share primarily for your game developers and your audience. Like, if you haven't started experimenting or doing things in terms of what could even just a mini game with kind of an AR overlay, you know, dive in. And you don't have to use our tools or work with us to do that. We would encourage everybody to get into it, because the engagement with the users is pretty phenomenal. This is just a stat from our AR snapshot feature. That was the foundation of a feature we launched in December called Buddy Adventures, which is basically you have a Pokemon buddy and you want to have them with you. And the ability to engage with them, get gifts from them, feed them, grow your relationship with them. And also with other friends, again, back to that real world social, you can take group photos now with your friends, your fellow trainers in Pokemon Go, and their buddies as well. And that's the shot here at the top. So this is obviously a Pokemon Go specific example. We've got other examples from our other products, but yeah, this is just trying to whet the appetite that the stats don't lie, right? Yes. Users love this stuff, and it's fun. And again, we're just getting started, I think, as an industry around this, and a lot of great innovative teams out there that are doing some amazing things that we also respect, and we're just happy to contribute to that. But to your question, just shifting gears to the developer side. So
yeah, developer side. We got a lot of developers in the room. They want to know, what is Niantic going to do?
Absolutely. Right? Well, Kelly Santiago heads up our developer relations team, and last year she did a pretty exciting project. It was basically we called it the XYZ developer contest, and it allowed small teams of developers to come in, use our tools, kind of look under the hood, get a sense to build applications or concepts that they had in mind. And we picked a winner after we had a diverse group of judges that voted on the different concepts and pitches. And there was a small family, a daughter and her, let's see, she went to MIT, her dad is an engineer, her brother's kind of more on the creative side in terms of music, narrative, etc. And they ended up winning the contest, this initial Beyond Reality contest that we did under Kelly's leadership. But we've extended that. We've extended that fund. We have a $10 million fund that we're using to fund developers. If you go back and look at some of the announcements in June, part of these funds will be used to help with our Black Lives Matter initiatives to help Black creators. these could be small teams or larger teams, fund their projects, built on our platform. So we're looking forward to get more, just diversity of experiences and perspectives in terms of the kinds of creative things that can be done. And so, Kelly's leading that. We've also got, if you went to niantic.dev, you can also send us your information. We will get you in our database and keep you updated on when certain tools and that sort of thing are going to be available. So that's kind of the way to engage with us. And Kelly reads every one of those inquiries, and we're excited to try to build out the number of developers that are working on our platform.
Okay, well, so this brings you to my next question, because I love AR as much as the next person, and so I am curious what trends are emerging. And you're starting to speak to how you're supporting those, but how do you balance like AR specific features with just non-AR, I guess I'll call them just gamey game features? How do you strike that balance?
Absolutely. One more thing, Gordon, before
Sure.
I move on to that. I should have made one more important point. Niantic is hiring. So the other path
Yes.
is, if you don't have an existing team that is really passionate about getting funded, just go to nianticlabs.com/jobs and check out the different roles available. We are hiring and trying to lean in here. So just one last point I wanted to make there. But to your question about the real world experiences pipeline. So again, we are, games like Pokemon Go and Ingress and Harry Potter have helped us really battle test the platform. We're excited to have more third parties now that are working on it. The one that I can tell you that is public, there's a lot of stuff that is in the pipeline that we're not going to share today, but we're working with a real scrappy, really innovative small developer team up in Washington State, doing a Settlers of Catan based game called Catan World Explorers. That is currently in soft launch in New Zealand, and we're looking forward to, if it makes it through soft launch in terms of our KPIs and that sort of thing. When it's ready, we're excited to bring that to the world. And we've got, as John Hankey, our CEO, announced a few weeks ago, we've got over 10 other games in development and are out there courting, as I mentioned, Kelly's work, other developers to come and work with us. So I think that the thing for us is basically, we think that the work we're doing is important, and I don't want to sound too altruistic or anything like that, but we think that there's benefits that the gaming industry can continue to improve upon, we'll say. And that's not to say that every game you should have to walk, although, that's probably going to be one of the things that you're going to see in every one of our products to get people outdoors. But really, we need to think about things like, things that have been stigmas, in society around, mental health and that sort of thing. And we need to do things to just make people's lives better, to be honest. And so we're hoping that getting these types of innovative tools in the hands of creative people that have fresh ideas. One of the things I love about the contest winner that I mentioned earlier, the game, by the way, is called Run to My Heart. And you can check out the videos of the team that developed that game. It's a running game, but it's trying to make running fun and gamifying it and that sort of thing. So that's just one maybe obvious example of the types of things you could do with our tools. But I bet we know there's thousands of other ideas, and it's just a matter of getting the tools in the hands. One of the things early in my career, about midway through my career at EA, I had the luxury or really the cool opportunity to work with Will Wright at Maxis with the Maxis team out in Walnut Creek. And Will was always, along with Luke Bartolet and Lucy Bradshaw and the core members of that team out in the East Bay. They were always about, just get the tools into the hands of the fans, and let's see what they can create. And obviously SimCity started that. The Sims, clearly one of the best IP of all time. We see companies like Roblox, doing this, another company we deeply admire. It's just about what can creators do. And so getting access to these types of tools to creators is one of the things that we want to help do to advance the industry forward. Yep. Because again, we love the innovation that comes from this space.
That's awesome. So you talked about how you're, what you're doing internally at Niantic. Yeah. You talked about some of the ways you're trying to serve the developer community. Uh-huh. Let's return. You mentioned, Pokemon Go and the proceeds being put out into the world. So maybe let's talk a bit about your social back, about the responsibility and accountability, and what Niantic is doing to leave the world better, than you found it, in addition to the pillars of exercise, which is great. But I guess what other ways are you actually acting on the world?
Right. Yeah. Social impact and social related initiatives have always been really important to John Hankey, our CEO and founder. And we have, over time, this started off as a pretty scrappy, opportunistic, it's the right thing to do. Let's do some kind of light, overlays at certain events. But we really formalized this program. Yenny Solheim Fuller, who I've known, she was actually at Niantic way before me. She currently is our head of social impact, and Yenny's done an amazing job to formalize our programs with key partners like the Knight Foundation and others. We do, specific efforts around Earth Day and that sort of thing, and more recently, the announcements we made around Black Lives Matter. Some of these photos are fun. You can see kind of the different groups we're working with. Here's a cleanup crew on Earth Day. This is after a Pokemon Go Community Day event. Here's some different, programs that we get involved in with local teams in cities like Oakland that are helping, small, groups and nonprofits that want to basically bring tech and coding into communities that often don't have easy access to that. And so that's another thing. Trinidad Herdita, who is our head of diversity and inclusion.
Hello, Trinidad.
And I know she's out there. Hi, Trinidad. That she's driving with our teams. And so next slide just shows more goodness of, during some of our live events when we can, find local communities that want to kind of do their part and help in cleanups and that sort of thing. So there's a whole series of things we do, and you can read all about it on our website. There's a social impact section there that summarizes all the work that Yenny and her team are doing. But yeah, it's just something we're really proud of, Gordon. I think that we're not being altruistic for the sake of being altruistic. We just think that, we all want to leave the world in a better place than we found it if we can. And younger generation has got a ton of pressure on them. That has not been the case, unfortunately, for society. Some of the atrocities and the things that have happened over the last several hundred years have put our Earth and our society in a bad place. And, everyone needs to do their part to turn this thing around. You need to vote. You need to get involved and help local organizations. You need to volunteer. And these are things we just try to live by and do ourselves. Again, just try to do our small part to make the world a better place. And I mentioned the GoFest proceeds. It's one way that the marketing guy can come into a live stream like this and say, please buy a ticket, and not feel guilty about it. Because again, we're going to donate all of our proceeds to that. Really excited. The Google Play Store team also is going to commit their proceeds to that. So that was a really great move by them. And so, yeah, these are going to go into programs that we feel real passionate about and that we're proud of. And, hopefully they'll trigger on other companies and teams and that sort of thing to do more. So we're very excited.
Sure. And I know on a personal level, I know you've been involved. I've seen. Next slide.
Yeah.
Show the slide. Show your slide.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
We weren't going to do this, but we were in rehearsal with Gordon and Trinidad and Lori Jones on our team. I was just very moved. My youngest daughter, she's personally a little she's been pretty mortified about, the George Floyd situation and so many others. And just, we're hundreds of years of this systemic, racism that is in our country. And I was just very motivated. My daughter's in the middle up there marching with me. I've got my Niantic Pride shirt on too, which was great. Shout out to Doc and Gordon and GGP on that. But I think that when you see the younger generation and when they get inspired, because they realize what is going on and just how it's just completely, so many things that are just inequitable. It's just really inspiring, to be honest. And again, you wish you could do more as an individual, but as so many people on our team that work with Trinidad on our D&I council and that sort of thing, every little bit helps. And so, yeah, this is a photo that I proudly shared just because it was a great time spent with my daughter Caroline and one of her best friends here locally, in a very, white community, but just helping my daughter see that, white privilege is real. The people that have, many ethnicities and stuff have benefited and many have not because of some of these things that are systemic. And it's just about self-awareness. I know everyone's talking about allies now, and you know, the Black community is one of several communities that needs allies. And so, you know, if my daughter can go and make a change, she wants to be a teacher. She starts at Cal Poly in the fall. You know, and she can make a difference in some small way, then, you know, maybe as a parent I did okay. So that's the kind of stuff that is personally inspiring to me, and I'm just so proud to work at a company where we have people like Trinidad that are trying to, you know, really amplify that and dial that up. So yeah, I'm proud.
Yeah, it's meaningful to see. It's important, and once again, obviously, we appreciate you making the time today to be here.
Yeah,
you know, front and
absolutely.
center with our LGBTQ plus community, valuing us, spending the time sharing information. And everyone, we are going to get to Q&A because I see some very intelligent and pointed questions. But first things first, Mike. I understand what you've done for the community in the world. What are you going to do for the crowd right here, right now? The people who made time for you. What do you got?
I'm excited to share that we have put together a we call it the GGP gift basket. It's a basket of Pokemon Go items for your inventory. This is a little more catered to the new or lapsed players in the audience. We know that you have a lot of choices out there and a lot of things that people do with their discretionary time. But yeah, it's just a little token to say, you know, thank you to Gordon. We've been working with GGP, you know, for a while. Folks like Doc Pruce and others within our, you know, Dana Han-Klein on my team, just doing things to help champion you and support you. And this is a very small token, but just a way to say thank you. And you know, if it you're gonna get an incense, a super incubator, and 50 Pokeballs. And if it makes a Saturday afternoon a little more fun next weekend for GoFest, then I hope you enjoy them. And Gordon is going to figure out all the distribution. I'm just giving him the gift baskets.
We have some questions from the community. They're both on Facebook as well as here. So I'll just sort of alternate back and forth between them. The first question was actually from, and I'll try to say this correctly, Clement Mercier. Clement asks, we saw in Pokemon Go that you started to implement characters from the anime, all these deep cuts, Jesse and James, during the second challenge of PokeFest.
Yeah.
Are you going to introduce more characters like Red, Blue from the manga?
Well, thank you for the question. Great question. We definitely have gotten positive feedback over the last basically year and a half when we first introduced members of Team Rocket, including Giovanni and Cliff and others. And you're exactly right. Jesse and James just made their debut with the Meowth balloon flying over pretty much all around the world just last weekend. So great question. This really all comes back to the partnership with the Pokemon Company. I probably mentioned it 3 or 4 times already, but this is just something that, you know, I think from day one, working with Mr. Ishihara and his team in Japan, as well as their teams in Seattle and in London, just built a trusting relationship. It's a very complimentary relationship. You know, we have nothing but respect for that IP. We have tons of diehard Pokemon fans and players. I mean, I'm a level 39 in Pokemon Go, but I'm old, so I kind of missed, you know, kind of growing up with the cards and the anime and that sort of thing. So you know, I'll do my Pigo like shout out, but there's other parts of that like someone like me doesn't have an appreciation for, but we know tons of our fans do. And so without giving you a specific answer, because, you know, our team would not be happy with that, and it's not my place to do that. I would say that if you look at some of the things we've done with them, especially in the last couple of years, you know, it all comes back to the types of things that work for them and work for us. And I think, as I mentioned, the ways that we complement each other, we have such respect for the IP, such admiration for the IP and what they've done over, you know, 23, 24 years, and vice versa. You know, I think that they appreciate, you know, kind of the innovation and the way that we think about things. One fun story from the early days of the Pokemon Company relationship, we found out when we started talking to them, we met them through some of you may remember there was a Google Maps April Fool's Day joke that featured Pokemon, and I mentioned the geo origins and history of the company. John Hankey and Tatsuo Nomura, who was the lead producer at Niantic on Pokemon Go before he went over to start our Niantic studio in Tokyo a couple years ago. they had built a relationship with Mr. Ishihara and his team, and we found out that both Mr. Ishihara and Mrs. Ishihara were high-level Ingress players. And
Nice.
so there's just some fun little, kind of backstories there about how we got here that are really, really, important. And so that's not a direct answer to the question, but I would say that, we've got a great relationship. There's a lot of trust, and it's been great to see some of these crossovers and these opportunities that we've done with them, not just with characters, but with, tie-ins with theatrical, like the stuff we did with Pikachu Detective last year and that sort of thing. So yeah, it will continue, but no specifics to share today.
And don't worry, we have some Ingress questions coming, but we're going to go through. I'm going through in order here. So the first question, and this was actually asked by Miles here, but also asked on Facebook about internships. You said you're hiring, but internships are a great way to get into a company. The question is, do you offer internships year-round, and do you have any remote internships?
Yeah, great question. So the only data that I have right now to answer that question is what we're dealing with this year. I imagine and I hope that this will evolve over time. We, because of COVID and because of the kind of situation that we were in, we decided this year to just limit our normal internship program that is usually cross-functional. We will have interns in operations and finance and marketing, as well as the bulk of which are in product functions, product management, production, engineering, art. Those are really where the majority of our internships have always been. This summer, we made a conscious decision. Again, we talked earlier in the live stream about employee safety, player safety, and in this case, the last thing we would want to do is put any prospective long-term employees from Niantic that we bring in as interns into harm's way. So we decided to scope back this summer and just focus on an engineering class of interns for this summer, and that's being managed by Yuji, who heads up our engineering team, along with Maria Weaver and our people team. So next year's plans, to be honest, I think we're going to have to adapt and see where we are with the pandemic, and hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have spikes and that sort of thing. We could. And so we have to be really thoughtful about that. What I would say is, watch this space. Stay tuned. We're very proactive on NianticLabs.com and our social channels about when we do have opportunities and that sort of thing. Typically, for a given summer program, we will start to talk to candidates in the previous fall. So that'd be around the September, October timeframe. We're not going to have a crystal ball necessarily for summer of 2021, but we'll at least start to hone in on our plan there. And I will tell you right now, we do not typically have year-round internships. They are usually summer-based, at least historically they have been. That's something I'm happy to follow up with Maria on after that and see if there's an appetite and just a capacity for that. We want to bring people in and support them. But sure. I hope that answered the question.
Well, in a related question, taking even a step back, the question relates to what the best language is to learn to work towards AR projects. But I think maybe even broadly, for people who are looking to educate themselves more, right? I'm interested in it, but I want to now bridge that knowledge gap. Do you have any recommendations, any guidance for places, resources, ways to take those first steps from being passionate about it to being knowledgeable about AR projects?
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say, and this is not a question you want the marketing person to answer. So that's the caveat. We have a lot of different folks with a lot of different programming backgrounds. I know we've got C++ programmers, Unity, Java. There's a variety depending on the need and the use case and what they're working on. There are different needs, but I really would prefer to maybe take that offline and follow up in one of the forums. I saw the Discord forum that you had shared. Maybe I could come back and give a more clear and explicit answer. Because again, you don't want the marketing person.
No, we'd want the right answer, not the fast answer.
That's right.
Because that's an ongoing concern, opportunity is how do we learn more? And that's what we're about.
And I will definitely follow up. Yeah.
We're going to pivot. The questions seem to fall into two different groups. I'm going to first go into, I guess, the question really speaks to like the evolution of safety in your games. And so we're going all the way back, the lessons of Ingress through Pokemon Go into Harry Potter. And so So Diane in here has a number of
I
important
saw
questions.
Diane's question. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yep.
I'll
I'll
read
let
it
you
out.
paraphrase.
I'll paraphrase.
Yeah.
Safety is paramount
Mhm.
to everyone in all of these experiences as we wander the earth, and the safety of people,
Yeah.
especially minorities, especially marginalized communities, is especially critical.
Yeah.
And I guess the question would be like, so there are examples in Ingress where there were missions that would not stand up in today's culture, right? These just don't stand up. How have you evolved, like, going forward? Like, how are you creating missions? How are you addressing complaints that are happening, whether that be between player interactions, like negative player interactions, or people going into spaces where they're not welcome?
Yeah.
What does Niantic do not only to keep people safe, but to continue to have that accountability, continue to learn and keep people even safer and safer, so they can have all these positive experiences that you're designing?
Yeah.
And that's in the real world as you walk around,
Yeah.
but also in the online community which you've given birth to.
Yeah. So thank you for the question, Diane. You asked a series of pretty tough questions. And one thing before I give you some of thoughts and some of the things that we've evolved and that we've changed over this, coming up on 8-year journey now, since Ingress launched, and other games have obviously preceded it. The thing I really appreciate about your question, Diane, is that it reminds me of what we're trying to do as a company. We're not perfect, but we are trying to create safe, supportive places where difficult conversations can happen. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact that, again, we're not perfect, but like, we've had so many types of issues, including this one, by the way, from our, we talk about our players and our community and how a lot of our employees they're hardcore Ingress players, they're hardcore Harry Potter or Pokemon Go players. They're very engaged. We like to create those spaces, and basically one way to destigmatize some of the tough issues and tough conversations is to just talk about them. I give my folks, a lot of time if there's a conflict, obviously in marketing, there's a lot of cross-functional project management, things that we do. It's simple advice that, like, one of many things, but it's just something like, hey, if you're having an issue with somebody, you have a concern, get in a room, look them in the eye, just talk things through. People sometimes, and I've been in large organizations, and you've seen the bureaucracy, you've seen the politics. I know many of you out there have been in large companies and seen that. It's just, we don't have time for it, and it's just not productive. And you just lose cycles, you lose productivity, it hurts morale. So I just wanted to say, as a sidebar, I appreciate that tough question, those series of questions, because this is something that I think our entire exec leadership team, and as we try to inspire our managers, our middle managers within the company, to just embrace. It's not comfortable at all. It's in fact, sometimes it's the most uncomfortable position you'll ever be in, but we try to encourage that. So that's just a sidebar, just for anyone that is interested in working at Niantic or come to us. This would be the kind of environment you'd find, and I think people should know that. So
I'll maybe rephrase Diane's second question a little differently.
Okay, go ahead. I think I know what she's asking. I kind of went on a sidebar there.
Well, are there resources for people? I'll just take the second question, right? As people are wandering in places on the world, so they're going to wander into situations where they're going to wander into strangers, security, police. Okay, yeah.
No, I'll come back. I'm going to answer the question now. Sorry. I just wanted to just show the appreciation, because again, as a society, we need to ask more tough questions. We need to make people feel uncomfortable. This is how change will happen. So I welcome it. Okay, so let me answer the question. So there's a couple kind of aspects to this, Diane. So first and foremost, in those early days of Ingress, we were doing some things that were very experimental. We talked about that third pillar, real world social, and you're exactly right. With the game action taking you to different locations, it's a type of thing that is not normal necessarily. I mean, it's one thing if you go to a park and throw a frisbee, or you go to a tennis court and that sort of thing, or go play pickup basketball or what have you. But people going to different locations in groups, staring at something, a statue, a piece of artwork, that sort of thing. You can imagine just with local law enforcement, not just in the US, throughout the world, we had a whole series of questions of what are those people doing, you know? And so part of the answer is one that has taken time, but it is, and it was pretty hard in the early days with a small company like us, but Lynette Posada Howard, who runs our operations team, she did, and her team over time have done everything that they could to build relationships with local law enforcement, local government officials, and that sort of thing, just to educate them. One process on that is we have a takedown policy where any property owner can submit a request to take down a POI, a point of interest. You know, and this is a portal in Ingress. It's a Pokestop in Pokemon Go. It's a greenhouse in Harry Potter. So that was one of many tactics and systems that we had to create, because again, we kind of brought this use case in gaming kind of, you know, to scale globally. So that was one example of that, is basically letting local law enforcement know that we have players. Here we are. We're this company, Niantic. At that time, actually, we were still within Google. So, you know, we would say we're this small group in Google, and this is what we're doing, and you know, that sort of thing. So part of it is awareness and education of the folks around, you know, these locations that might wonder, well, what are those folks doing? Number two is, you know, we always do try to encourage people to just use kind of basic common sense. Like we certainly wouldn't want anyone to, you know, go out late at night in an unsafe area and that sort of thing. And that's not me pushing the problem back to the player. It's just, we try to do things. I mean, the obvious example of it is when you get the warning on all of our games about, you know, please do not drive, or even like we have speed controls. You know, if you are moving faster than a certain speed, you'll get a warning that you can't play the game, because we don't want people driving and playing. So there's other things we're doing in the game and outside of the game to basically keep people safe, right? The current version of that is the things we talked about on the front end of this live stream with regards to features that while people were sheltering in place could still enjoy the games without having to go out. So that's another aspect. Another answer to the question, and this is a great one around how we've evolved and how we've changed. You were there's a related question, I think it's either from Diane or it's right below her, about the actresses and actors that we would hire to be characters in our games. We took a lot of inspiration in the early days of Ingress from essentially old school ARGs. You know, these things that would be out in the real world with actors and that sort of thing. And in hindsight, yeah, there are some things that, you know, especially with the optics of today, like, you know, that we you know, probably wouldn't do today, right? But that is part of the learning process. And again, we have to own that. For what it's worth, I worked on a lot of those live event designs. In fact, I started up one of our original programming efforts called the Ingress Report, which was a weekly show covering the news of Ingress and the world of Ingress. And a big part, about 30 or 40% of that content every week, was around these characters and around the canon, because we're trying to build up the backstory and that sort of thing. And then we cast these characters and have them show up in live events. So at the surface, wow, that's awesome. And if you're in a big crowd and you get to meet Clue or Dr. Littenwolf, or some of the Ingress fans out there hopefully will remember some of these characters, you know, it would be cool to bring this digital kind of imagination and narrative you had from the game and see it in the real world. But you're absolutely right. There are some things that we did where, wow, you're encouraging me to go find this this character because she has a clue or a piece of information for me. You know, that's certainly something that you know, one of those things where just lack of awareness on how that could be perceived is obviously you know, just been learning for us. The last thing I would say, just to answer the question, sorry, Gordon, I just—
Oh no, it's not sorry. This has been learning. Everyone's here.
Yeah.
This is why we're here for.
Yeah. I think the other thing is that we have had some other basic things we've tried to do, other than just encouraging people to, you know, just, you know, be smart and don't put yourself in harm's way and that sort of thing. But we do have things like we turn off certain functionality in the game, you know, after certain time zones, like 9 p.m. local time or 10 p.m. local time. Do we need to do more? Maybe we do. And I think that's the kind of feedback where Brandon Christensen, who runs our global community, he's got global community leads for Pokemon Go, like Liz George, or for Harry Potter Wizards Unite, that's KM Ofuku. These are the teams that are on the front lines, along with Lynette's operations team that are managing customer support, to hear this feedback from the community. And if you think that there's more that we should be doing, I will certainly take this feedback, back with me. But we are listening. We are out there, every social channel, every help desk ticket, that sort of thing. And we're just going to try to do better. I mean, this is our responsibility by basically creating this category of game experiences to do. And if it helps the greater good, then obviously that's what we want. So I hope that answers at least part of the question and the intention of the question.
I think it's a living question, and
right.
and actually these next series of questions are all living questions. They're all related to what we talked about, how you adapted, and what that means sort of going forward. So I'll ask the first one. I'll ask from Tina Wamkow. I'm going to say I mean to say your name properly, but WAHMKOW. In addition to the stationary Go Fests Safari Zones, will there also be digital events like the one next weekend? Because I could never participate in previous events because they were too far away.
Yeah. Great question. We would love to roll in to every city around the world and see our fans. One of the great things about these live events, we encourage our employees to come and attend and hear from the players, firsthand. Again, it's not always fun because you get some difficult questions too, but just to see the experience, see how maybe some type of a gym battle was designed, and did it work or not work, or that sort of thing. So we love being out in the real world with our fans. That's hard to do this year, obviously. But I think to answer the question is, we are trying to figure out kind of scalable ways to do more live events. One of the things that we announced back in June, we are trying to scale up a new program with our SMB partners. These are small and medium-sized businesses where we're taking nominations for local businesses to become locations in our games. And over time, the intention would be there are certain properties and special attributes of these locations because they're part of our partner network. Most people know those commercial, quote unquote, locations to be things from, some of our larger, historical, larger sponsors like SK Telecom in Korea or Starbucks in the US or folks like that. But we're talking about small businesses, trying to help them, to boost foot traffic and make more awareness of their stores, through our games because of the reach that we have with our games. And so I think that's one part of that solution. And there's other things, that go to that as well. But that's just one example of I think the kind of things that we're trying to do.
We have a related question from Facebook from Chris Genuine, which is this: Pokemon Go Fest is a great way of encouraging people to stay home. Yep. And the Niantic Local Business Recovery Initiative is helpful to supporting businesses.
Thank you. That's it. Yes.
How is Pokemon Go, or how could Pokemon Go and Harry Potter and Ingress encourage players to practice other healthy habits, such as wearing masks in public?
That's a great question.
It's an open question. Maybe we'll put that on your whiteboard of thought.
Yeah.
But, right? Because you're doing these things which are very intentional, that are driving positive behavior. There's a behavior that we all need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So
open question. I don't have a specific answer to that specific question around masks.
Sure.
I do know that we clearly can influence certain behaviors, and we do have an ability to move people around, usually for just fun and enjoyment and entertainment, not necessarily for other uses. Although voter registration and polling places is the one that I love, but that's a separate conversation.
Yes.
As we head in November. But I think that it's a great question. I think that the thing we have to be careful on that one is that it's not a Niantic decision. And that's not me just passing the buck to our partners, but with Ingress, it's obviously our wholly owned IP. We have a lot more flexibility, but we have to do things that would would work for, you know, a partner like the Pokemon Company or a
Sure.
partner like Warner Brothers. And again, these are great partners. They have high integrity. They you know, are charitable in so many things that they do, and they share so many values with us, that I'm not saying no, but I'm saying that it's complicated, and you know, it's the kind of thing that I think, depending on how the pandemic kind of, you know, evolves and what does or doesn't happen, I think it's the kind of things that we can certainly consider. Going a step beyond the things that I said I was so proud of. Again, great hard question, and perhaps that's something that we can, as a management team, I can take back and we can think about. Hey, y'all, like, can we do more? And maybe we can. So.
Well, speaking of doing more, actually, we have two related questions. One's from Brandon Harris. One is from Dominic. And they both relate to influencers, to your community.
Sure.
And so I'll pose this as a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
The first is talking about creators. Are there any plans for a content creator influencer program, you know, upcoming relationships with platforms to work alongside the upcoming events? The second part is this: is Wayfarer Company a part of Niantic? Have you been thinking of ways to reward some of the top reviewers since they make the game better? And so these are related questions about your influencer ecosystem.
Yeah. On part one, completely acknowledge that it has been much more homegrown and organic versus formal. Again, I mentioned the community team earlier on this live stream that build those relationships. It's the vanguards for Ingress. It's the Pokemon Go set of influencers that we work with on Pokemon Go, and there's a similar group for the Harry Potter game. And so that is probably not as formal as it could be. So it's good feedback. I think that's another one where, at least for 2 out of 3 of those cases, we have to do it, you know, in lockstep and arm in arm with our partner. But you know, that beachhead, at least so far, has been one that's been more organic and kind of homegrown, if you will. On the second question, yeah, Wayfarer it's part of Niantic. It is basically a rating system that cuts across the entirety of our portfolio. It's actually more on the platform level, kind of the database of locations that we have, over 10 million locations that are live in our games all around the world. And the question, intelligent question, someone that knows how we do this. We have been empowering the community to both submit, edit, and make takedown requests, you know, directly since day one. You know, the locations of your local gym or Pokestop or your greenhouse or inn in Harry Potter, you can and should thank the Ingress players from 2012 to the present, because they did a lot of that heavy lifting, and it's something that we never forget, and we appreciate every day. And in fact, John Hankey's been engaged with our community group with Ingress, the Vanguards, just recently, getting on kind of a dialogue with them about where we're heading with that product. And so yeah, Wayfarer is very strategic for us because exactly to the question's point, like, why not empower more? Should there be more rewards? So now we're gonna, you know, I kind of like gave my partial answer on the technical question about what kind of programming languages should you know, and kind of said, hey, let's not ask the marketing guy this. To be really blunt, on the legal side, we have to be careful with this in terms of employment laws and that sort of thing. Anything that would look like we're trying to get free labor or something like that. I mean, again, it's like, sometimes it's so funny how you have these good intentions and you want to empower folks, but then, you know, it can trigger things that you didn't see coming. And so our general counsel, Courtney Power, is just an amazing, she helps us navigate these types of waters. And so I'd love to say it's as easy as, hey, you know, if you're a heavy user of Wayfarer and you do help us make the game born better and that sort of thing, that here's reward XYZ. But there's a reason that we put some governors and guardrails around that. And it's more of a legal thing, which again, I am not qualified to answer. But it's a great question. But I hope it gives you context for the question, because I appreciate it. But those types of things are maybe a little more harder to formalize than you might think, especially in certain jurisdictions and countries and states.
Well, here I have an exciting question that I believe we're wrapping up here. I'm gonna be over on Discord, so people just know we exist year round on Discord. And I believe Mike just posted in the group for all of you, and we'll post it in the Facebook as well, so you can always just talk to us all the time about things. But right now, Mike, I think, yeah, this is my favorite final question.
Mhm.
And it is from, gosh, I want to say your name properly. I'm just going to spell your name out. It's Ivica, and the last name is Jedud. And their question is this. You've talked about endorsing social movements such as Black Lives Matter
Mhm.
and various environmental initiatives. Following that, will we be able to see, for example, a special Pokemon Go or Harry Potter event celebrating Pride, or some other LGBTQ plus event like coming out month in October
Yeah, yeah,
in the future?
yeah. Yeah, great question. By the way, there was a related question that I was hoping you were going
Sure.
to get to, and you didn't. Just tied to the things we're doing on the hiring front on this
Oh,
regard.
well
And
then we'll
I,
get, hey, well then
no,
guess what? One more question.
well,
We got time.
I can touch on that at the end. I
Yeah.
just
Yes.
no, but it was something I wanted to share with the audience here.
Sure.
But yeah, to answer the first question, so we have been again, I mentioned the social impact team and the diversity and inclusion council that Trinidad runs for us at Niantic. We've been starting to do more and more things. You know, donations. I believe we helped y'all out at the GGP conference in where you were at the conference in Texas. I think it was PAX.
Yeah, PAX South. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And you know, have done some things within the Niantic handles, which have pretty good reach. These are the social channels, email, that sort of thing, to raise awareness and celebrate Pride. We've done some things in the games that you know, kind of celebrated as well. Another one of those things. Can we do more? Absolutely. And again, I think I like our trend. I don't know if it's the kind of thing that you know, you snap a finger and then just it's 1,000 times more than we've done before. Again, for some of the reasons I mentioned before about our IP versus others' IP and that sort of thing. But it's certainly something that we advocate and that we promote and that we push. And I think I like where we're heading. And I think that, you know, if you ask me that question again in 6 months, in 9 months, in 12 months, you know, as we come on Pride next year and that sort of thing, I think I'm going to be happy with that answer because it's going to show that continued momentum and trajectory. So,
And you know what? You're doing great, Mike. You're here right now. You're here today. But
yes.
I will lead you to the question, which
Yeah.
is in here, which is from Facebook, actually. What
Mhm.
are you doing internally? Because there's a number of
Yeah.
developers, there's artists, there's engineers here in this crowd. They're watching on Facebook,
Yep.
and they want to know for us, what are you doing internally
Yeah.
at Niantic to not only boost diversity, but to value it when it's there?
Yeah.
Right? So not only just to get
Absolutely.
them in the door, but to make their lives thrive at Niantic.
Yeah. So yeah, a few thoughts on this, and it starts with more transparency. To be honest, one of the things that Trinidad has advocated is the fact that, you know, she came in and she sees that we're doing all these great things, and of course she helped us make everything, like, you know, 50 times, 100 times better. But she, you know, one of her early observation was like, why don't y'all talk about this more? You know, and we've always been a relatively a pretty humble company. You know, we're not a braggadocious group, and I think we just like to, you know, stay a little more low key and that sort of thing. But she had a really good point. It's like, hey, you know, people need to know that this is how we operate the business. And so one of the decisions we made in June, just last month, we actually shared some of our hiring goals. We shared the target of having 50% of our employee base be female, 30% of our employee base be underrepresented minority, and with those formal goals of things that you know, we're tracking, it is having an amazing halo effect on other communities that are often underrepresented. And so I think that you know, that's one thing that you know, is very important to Trinidad, and you know, something that we're trying to just be more transparent about and make more progress on. Related specifically to LGBTQ, I think that the D&I Council that we have created is another one of those. It's made up with a lot of different, you know, members from a lot of different, you know, groups and that sort of thing. But again, just having them have, you know, direct impact and help us architect the types of programs or initiatives or that sort of thing is a key part. And in fact, that D&I Council is responsible for another one of the things that we announced back in June, tied to our Black Lives Matter initiative, where a portion of the funds that we were donating for BLM, we actually specifically targeted at the Marsha P. Johnson Institute. And everyone, is hopefully aware of the, how instrumental she was on the Stonewall Uprising and that early work that went underappreciated for so long. And that's one of our matching programs, actually. So these are small steps, but they're important steps. And again, I think it starts with the more we are transparent, not just internally, but externally about the things we're doing, and the more feedback we get from forums like this, I like the chances of us continuing to just be a place that is supportive. And we're also fortunate that we have stumbled on, a gameplay experience at its heart, at least for the gaming use case. There's other use cases we think our technology will enable that I spoke about earlier, but we think we stumbled on something that we know from our numbers, it plays everywhere. Like this is, I've worked on a lot of entertainment IP with some amazing creators over the years. I mentioned The Sims earlier. Worked on Battlefield with the DICE team in Sweden for years. So many other great, amazing creators that I've worked with over the years. I've never seen anything more diverse than the player base we have with our games. And that's not just a Pokemon Go thing. It's true for Harry Potter. It's true for Ingress. I think we're going to find that as Settlers of Catan moves its way through soft launch. I think we're going to find that as well. And so we have a responsibility as a company to make sure we don't get too homogeneous in our thinking, and that we are thinking broader. And that's not just a country thing. We're talking about, whether it's based on, kind of gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation. What are the things that we're thinking of to be as inclusive as we can? Even, our handicap players, we try to think about them a lot when we're doing game design so that they can participate and that sort of thing. So, you can't do it all with one. There's no silver bullets in any of this stuff, but if you can do a series of activities that over time really move the needle and make things better, then, hopefully we're playing some small part to make it better. So.
Well, wow. Well, with that, I mean, thank you very much, Mike. Thank you, everyone who made time to attend. We're going to have the contact info on the next slide as soon as we shut down here. Everyone obviously look in your emails who register on the Eventbrite, whether you be out there on Facebook Live, hello, or here inside the Zoom with us for our, wait, what was the actual name? Our GGP, what's our gift pack called?
Oh,
Mike?
it's the GGP gift basket.
The GGP gift basket. Look for your GGP gift basket. And yeah, just there's a way to keep in touch with me, with us. The Discord is great for the community. Obviously here on Facebook as well. Mike, thank you again for making time with us and just sharing with our community, and just hopefully looking forward to just more and more and more in the months and years ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gordon, for having me. And on behalf of Niantic, just wish you all the best and stay safe out there.
Yep.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone else. Yeah, stay safe and healthy out there. Bye-bye.